shall proceed.
Okay. Okay. So you good?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So we are live in effect. Live in effect. We had a slight delay. Had some things go down that I had to be taken care of. So sometimes important things go first, and just happy that was taken care of. You know what I'm saying? Some folks got satisfied.
That's right.
Got what they requested, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's all good. We are here again with the good brother, Dr. Gabriel Hernandez-El. And if I'm gonna tell you right off the jump, if you have not seen this brother or heard this brother speak, please follow him. Follow the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. Follow Dr. Gabriel Hernandez-El. Um, you know, and let me just kind of talk about, the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. We are here to uplift humanity. If you have a good mind and good heart, you know what I'm saying? We're here to give information to uplift you. You know what I'm saying? In addition, we are here to help reawaken the melanated, woolly-haired zombies that have fallen asleep and are starting to wake up. And it's a beautiful time to be in. You know what I'm saying? If you have not already, please go to polka.rabbitpodcast.com or even Amazon to pick up my book, Bicultural Living and Leaving the World of Illusions. Last night I talked about how I was trying to put out my second book, but then there's so many changes in this world and so many other things that I've written about. I'm trying to compile it all together, put the jigsaw puzzle together to release the second one, but it is coming sooner than later. Believe that. And um, that's really it for me. I'm gonna go ahead, if you would, Dr. Gabriel, please, tell the folks where you are, what you do, and then we can start moving forward.
Yeah, true indeed. Peace and love, family. I rise to my highest, giving all praise to the Most High. And I would like to extend honors to all of you who are watching, I'd like to extend honors to my brother Zoe for having such a platform where he discusses critical topics so that people can benefit from it. That being said, a little bit about me. I am a doctor of naturopathic medicine. I'm an herbalist. I I have a long list of things. I own a restaurant, an herb shop. Um, I do a lot. I my whole goal in life is to really help people, um, whether it's regarding health, wealth, or knowledge of self. You know, just keep it real simple. That kind of breaks it down. So if you're, trying to get your estate together, or your credit, I can assist you if you're trying to start a business. Um, but if you're also trying to get your health together, if you need to cleanse, detox, you can do that. If you're trying to get your vegan food, come to the spot. We actually are reopening at a new location tomorrow. So yeah, so the plate is full, and that's what a
Indeed.
little bit about what I do. A little bit.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug for you because um, this box right here, if y'all see this, this is the detox that I got from this good brother, and I've done some great detoxes throughout my days, and this thing right here was the most effective and smoothest. I hope, and y'all people that do detoxes, y'all know what I'm talking about. One
It's
of the
gentle.
most
It's gentle.
effective, yeah, and smoothest,
Yeah,
gentlest
yeah, that's right.
detox I've ever done. And I'm not just saying that because it's my homeboy.
Right.
If y'all check him out, I think this was the cleanse, right? This was the what
Yeah,
was there a specific name for it?
yeah. On the website, that particular cleanse is the 21-day full body cleanse.
Okay,
So
all right, all right.
this addresses all of the organ systems, and
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, I just had to put that in because I
my
got to tell
favorite.
everybody, anybody, and everybody.
No, much
because
appreciated.
yeah, because I'm only gonna, you know, if I've done it, I can talk about it and I appreciate it. I do appreciate it, but and I can talk about it from a personal thing, then I'm gonna put it out there. So that very good. Holler at the brother if you want to get your detox on. Now, now it's interesting. And me and a good brother one day we were talking just on the phone, and we were just talking about different topics in the world, stuff like going on. And the reason why this title it is why we brought it up is who created the the nigger and why are we loved and hated by the world. The reason why I brought that up, because numerous reasons, because in my book there's a chapter when I talk about how what I witnessed is that if you let America specifically, the system that's set up, if you let it dictate the way you're educated, the way that you're anything that you allow them to guide you guide you down and let them teach you and educate you. I've only seen two outcomes. Like I said, the nigger and the Negro in the book. My man, Black America you said you forgot revolutionary. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna have to add that on the next book. And there's three things America built because it has built some revolutionaries. So I agree with him 100%. And but the reason why I wanted to talk about this because it's like
It was arranged.
it's a long history of this title because you literally have a time in which we were loved and adored and even at some aspect looked at as gods, you know what I mean, literally on not only on this continent but around the world, and the good brother Supreme Understanding wrote a book called Black Gods, and you can see through time the way it's compiled all the different gods that were of Negroid descent, you know what I'm saying, and how they were revered. This ain't something I'm saying. This is facts. You know what I'm saying? This is, you can look this stuff up yourself. Um, and there's also been a time frame, and we've been, looked at as the most worst thing you could ever imagine. You know what I mean? As humans, and not even looked as humans, but looked as, cattle or whatever the case may be. But the question is, you know what I mean? And that's what I was getting to dealing specifically most recently, because we're going to talk about it later on, but most recently, because I hear this music, Doc, that I hear today, this rap, and I see all these crazy movies. Every time you took around, you see another slave movie on the cinema. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you see on the news, you see these people doing these horrendous things. You know what I'm saying? But of all races, I'm talking specifically about our folks right now. But you know, somebody influence in a negative way
Mhm.
to get in this position. You know what I mean? And not only, I remember Bobby Hemmett was saying that he was pretty much breaking it down that like every specific aspect you can imagine is an onslaught on melanated people. You know what I mean? So can we kind of go back to a certain time frame, and you can elaborate on it as well. When was it in which it was just an all out onslaught attack on the melanated people, specifically in America?
Specifically in America.
Mm-hmm.
Man, from day one, uh, 1492,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the day Cristobal Colon landed
Mm-hmm.
um, on the shores of Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, a lot of people like to, how should I say, uh, give credence to slavery in America starting in 1619,
Mm-hmm.
when in fact it actually started in 1492 as far as the transatlantic slave trade,
Mm-hmm.
because he brought back, I forget the exact number, close to 20 indigenous people as slaves back to
Mm-hmm.
Spain. Um, Now, the reason why I say that that's the starting point, because we
Mm-hmm.
also have to look at what preceded Cristobal Colon making that voyage or that trip,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Remember 1492, Granada, Spain, that was the last Moorish stronghold that was defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So once that happened, uh, the Moors we had to get out of Spain. We had to
Mm-hmm.
get out of Europe. We
Mm-hmm.
had to get out of Europe, period.
Mm-hmm.
They had already started signing the papal bulls as early as 1451, 1452 in Portugal, uh, and in 1491. And the Pope was basically saying that um, go basically into these Moorish lands, uh, capture the Moors and enslave them and claim their lands for the Church of Rome.
Mm.
And so, this is what they call the, the doctrine of discovery, right? And doctrine of discovery, when you look into it, is an extension of the Christian Crusades.
Mm.
So what they're not really talking about in schools when they're talking about this, it's breezed over, and maybe these days it's even more touched on. But I know when I was in school, it was kind of like a light glazing. They would rarely use the term more when they would touch on that period. But what that time period was, the Christian Crusades, the Christians were basically attacking the Muslims and the Jews, the Muslims and the Jews, the Moors that occupied and ruled Europe at that time. So I hope that kind of deals with that question. But if I had to pinpoint a starting point, that's it, and it's based on those things that we just, at least partially based on those things, because it goes even deeper psychologically as to why
that's
that
what
happened.
because I'm like, okay, so you had the Moors pretty much running the whole globe, going over to Europe, cleaning all these people up that weren't taking baths and all this kind of craziness, for a good period, if I'm not mistaken, they helped out in the Dark Ages, correct?
Yeah, I
And brought them
mean,
out of the Dark Ages. Okay.
on record from 711 to 1492, so
Okay.
almost 800 full years.
And okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So now there's a power shift. Okay.
Yep.
There's a power shift. And what is the mindset? What inspired these individuals to be like, go get the Moors, go get these indigenous people, we got to get on land? What was the mindset behind that? Is it because did they get a boost? Did they get information? What was it that they were just like, yo, they got to go, and we got to start this whole white supremacy tip? How did that go?
So it's kind of like one of those ancient hatreds. If
Hmm.
you're familiar, like ancient beefs, how you have like, your Jews and your Muslims. Like in general, most Muslims and Jews don't have any issues with each other. But historically, and I guess we could say through the eyes of the dominant media,
Hmm.
it's portrayed as if Jews and Muslims are,
Hmm.
like this.
Hmm.
Uh, when reality, when in reality, especially during Moorish rule in Europe, specifically in Spain,
Hmm.
all of these people, regardless of your religion, religious background, there was no, there was no
Animosity.
force, there was no issues. Like
Hmm.
there was actually councils that they would have where the Moors would invite the various priests from various, denominations. And so there was never an issue with that. So the Europeans had never been in a situation where they were that free, where they were
Hmm.
now being educated, where they had
Hmm.
access to plumbing and clean water and
Hmm.
air conditioning and cobblestone streets and lighted streets. Did you know the Moors had the streets lit up at night?
Hmm.
Right? This is just think about what we're talking about. We're not talking about, in the 1800s, 1700s, there was no lighted streets.
Hmm.
But the Moors, what, 600 years ago and further back, had, things that are considered to be uh, pretty much new,
Hmm.
pretty much contemporary. As far as plumbing is concerned, most places don't have plumbing in the world right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
Um, so, so to get a little bit deeper, for the last, and this is documented. So for the
Mhm.
last maybe 3,000 years that we have record of, um, Moors have gone into, and when I say Moors, I just want to be a little clear. So I'll say Africans.
Mhm.
That's another word. Most people, and we'll get into the semantics of these words as we move into black and nigger and these types of
Mhm.
things, the
Mhm.
Negro. Because there's a relation, but there's also a false narrative around the
Yeah.
relationship. So
Mhm.
we got to deal with all of that. But you know, the Moors, we were raiding European coasts for thousands of years and enslaving Europeans.
Mhm.
It's just a fact. A lot of
Mhm.
people aren't aware. A lot of people don't want to deal with this. And
Mhm.
people talk about karma. And, you know, it's like if you enslave a people for a few thousand years, and you got these people running scared because they know when you hit the coast, you're
It's a
snatching up
wrap.
the women. You're snatching up
Mhm.
all the women, right? So imagine the amount of hatred, fear that these people have
Mhm.
harbored for all of these thousands of years. Then you
Mhm.
come in and you take over. Not that we didn't occupy and rule that land from jump,
Mhm.
right? We get into the Grimaldi man. We're talking 30,000 years. We know that
Mhm.
our modern European is not that old, right?
Mhm.
We know that he's a mixture, right, of two types of people,
Mhm.
which is another kind of conversation. But
Mhm.
um, to stay on track, I mean, would you be upset if
That's a
if,
good point. I never really thought about it that way.
yeah, so think, I mean, we're talking about the whole Mediterranean coast.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Spain, Portugal, England, Ireland, Scotland, Sicily, Italy,
Mhm.
Greece,
Mhm.
right? Moors going in and having their way, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think sometimes, uh, a lot of us try to romanticize our history.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We were just, you know what I'm saying? Just stellar.
Like it's all crisp,
Just,
it's all clear and
yeah,
pretty, and nothing went wrong, and like they do in the movies. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. So it's, when you start digging, man, certain stuff starts coming up. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And we just got to deal with it because it helps us to, I was talking to one of my brothers earlier, and, the prophet said the only way out of the fire is through the fire.
Hmm.
So let's not turn away from the truth that's going to help us deal with this situation a little bit better. Let's face it head on. Hey, we got like with truth. What are you going to do? Not accept it? You can you
Yeah.
can you can choose not to. But
Yeah.
where does that leave you? Like
You know,
yeah,
I saw this book. I don't know if Dane Calloway wrote it, but it might have been. I can't remember, but on the picture, it had white people coming off the boat in bondage, and then it looked like they look like quote unquote pirates, which I heard, that's what they used to call them Moors as well. But they were sitting there bringing them off in bondage because they were, they had them in enslavement. And it's like we were always taught the opposite, like you said, but we were never taught about the reverse aspect of slavery, in which the enslaved were the whites, or the Caucasians, I should say,
yeah,
or the Europeans,
yeah.
and brought over here. You know what I mean? What can you name? I mean, I can't tell you one story, or one time I've ever told about that scenario. Never. When I say never, never. You know, think about all that history, like you were saying, that just has not even been touched. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like
Yeah,
even when we talked about our whole episode of the last time about, we came before Columbus, and how it hasn't been touched, that most, the vast majority of black people are here as natives. You know what I'm saying? That story wasn't told either.
that's
You
right.
know what I'm saying? So it's like, yo, they did such a good job by just covering up so much, our story. I ain't gonna say his story. I'm gonna say our story, man. And then
Yeah,
Well, shoot, his story too, because they didn't tell parts
You
of their
see,
story, man.
but even in that, and this is something that I found it just in my days of research and studying is that
Mm-hmm.
um, even though there was a massive cover up of a whole
Mm-hmm.
lot,
Mm-hmm.
even in the cover up, they kept records.
Yeah. Yeah.
They they even kept records of the cover ups.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an
Mm-hmm.
example real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at um, so this you can relate to this. So I remember in the '90s reading a one of Dr. York's scrolls,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one of the scrolls was talking about I want to say it was either referring to I want to say it was the Canaanites.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure this was Canaanite, and I do have screenshots of it, so it is Canaanites. And so with the one of the pictures that he showed of the Canaanites, and see, this is something why we have to be uh, very careful with historical like research, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then making definitive claims about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the piece that he showed, the piece of the wall that he showed in the book, was the piece of the wall that was always available for the public at that time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had seen it elsewhere, but he kind of explained, "Hey, these are Canaanites, and they look like pale-skinned people on the wall in Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
right?" But what I didn't know about at that time was uh, an archaeological, uh, I should say, debasing technique that racist archaeologists use.
Mm-hmm.
Some are known as Orientalists. Um, there's a word for another type, but basically, one of their tools of the trade is something called scraping,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I, just like when Dr. York put it in that book, he was like, these are these pale skinned Canaanites. But later on, 15, almost 20 years down the line, probably not quite 20, but almost 15 years down the line, I'm I'm looking at the same picture, except now I'm looking at the picture of the whole wall. But
And they
I'm
dark.
but I'm also looking at the picture of the like that picture of the scraped figure
Mm-hmm.
is what's been given to the public for decades,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you look at the whole wall, they're all brown. It's just they didn't finish scraping everybody out.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So some had the legs scraped, some had the face scraped, some had the entire body, but it was only a few that had the entire body because it is a painstaking process to
Process.
even
Yeah.
do that. But to see that they started to like try to scrape that whole wall like that,
Mm-hmm.
so that yeah, there's people who are intentionally trying to take our history
Mm.
and to take that glory because we do have a glorious past.
Mm-hmm.
But within that glory, we also have some, everybody has their own Achilles heel, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um,
He had to be
yeah,
because Canaan was a son of Ham, so he had to be.
thank you.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you look at
And
when you look deeper into the archaeology, now I'm not gonna say hundreds, but I probably have close to 50 pictures of ancient Canaanites that are etched into walls, either in Egypt or in ancient
mm-hmm.
Canaan. I'm talking about there's no mistaking who these people are, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I can see how that would happen because I saw those same pictures. So it's easy for us to sometimes, you know, so I like the fact that he always made it a point to say, don't look it up, right? Don't just take what I say.
Yeah.
So go and research
Don't
it,
believe me? Check it out.
check it out. And
Yep.
that's important. Those are important
Mm-hmm.
instructions when it comes to
Uh-huh.
any of this stuff. But
Yeah.
to stay on topic, when you go into what is it, the mess what do I want to call it? I don't know. I want to say Mesopotamia, but those ancient tablets.
Mm-hmm.
What are they called? The
Cuneiform.
Yeah, the cuneiform tablets, but
Mm-hmm.
it's another name for them. But anyway, in those tablets, it talks, and it even has in some of those carvings, it has a European type being enslaved,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually talk about them basically grafting these
Mm-hmm.
people,
Yeah.
right? And when you do the science and the research, you see that the modern European is a 4% Neanderthal,
Mm-hmm.
96% Homo sapien.
Mm-hmm.
So that's two separate species,
Yeah.
And the Chinese and the Asians are similar,
Mm-hmm.
where they're 2% Neanderthal,
Mm-hmm.
98% Homo sapien. So their history began, as far as I can tell, in a form of servitude. And that's why, I think you get certain people that point out the whole Slavic
Yeah.
piece,
Mm-hmm.
right? And getting into the etymology of slave
Mm-hmm.
and dealing
Yeah.
with the Slavs and the Slavics. Um, so, yeah, and even like you just said in that book, and in a few other books, they highlight, um, Europeans, so-called whites, that um, I wouldn't even call it suffered servitude in this country, because when they came to this country, um, it was voluntary.
Yeah.
So their subjugation was a voluntary subjugation. It
Mm-hmm.
was not anything forced,
Yeah.
you know. And one thing, a lot of people attempt to, what's my son called? But I see a lot of people attempt to, my son called. He kind of knocked my train of thought off. And I forgot the point I was getting ready to make, brother.
You're saying servitude. Um,
Oh yeah, so they would volunteer for that 7
mm-hmm.
years, and once they've done that, they basically buy their way out, and
Mm-hmm.
then they go on about their business. And there was even a group of us that were involved in that form of
Mm-hmm.
servitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But to get into like I guess the topic a little bit
Mm-hmm.
directly,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I want to deal with is like there's a myth
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen thrown around. I've heard KRS-One say it recently. I couldn't believe he was still saying it, because I debunked the myth, for myself probably back in 2010, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting to see up to date reel of KRS-One having this
Yeah.
conversation about nigger and trying to connect it to Naga or niggas,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's real cute, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good, might even feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is the term Naga, um, referring to the snake,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Serpent.
serpent, and you know that that's not related.
Yeah.
It's just not etymologically, not linguistically, not you know. It's interesting.
It's reaching. It's reaching.
It's completely reaching it, and to
Yeah.
make those types of definitive claims is just false. Even with Negus, Negus,
Mm-hmm.
um, that one's even more comical, because it means king,
Yeah.
right?
Completely
In
different.
the Amharic tongue,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it translates to. But anybody can just pull up the etymology of these words, and you'll see
Make
that
something up.
there's no relationship. There's like when you
Yeah.
study etymology, it shows you the line of
Mm-hmm.
languages that it falls, and it's just not related.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be the first thing I would just to get off of the table, just to say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I
Naga and
appreciate it.
Nigga.
That's a good. That is a because a lot of people, it's been kind of put out there in the mainstream as
Yeah,
something that's like factual, but people just gonna not do any research to see if there is any type of connection. So yeah, that's true.
yeah, no, and those are what I call, that's what are called logical fallacies. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it can sound good, like certain things play on our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as disenfranchised people, it's easy. You say the right thing. We got a soul. So you
Mm-hmm.
say something that touch that soul, make them feel like, ooh, you know. So it feels good to say that. Oh, niggas. I mean, king. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
And then you got it on shirts, and you
that's
know what I'm
right.
saying.
And,
And
and, and that's cool. I think we are amazing people,
mm-hmm.
industrious, and we definitely know how to make lemonade. You get what I'm saying?
Bobby Hemmett was saying. I remember Bobby Hemmett was saying. He was saying that he was saying something about how the word. Well, what did I never mind. I can't. I don't even want to say it because I don't want to screw it up. But here's another way I'm gonna come to this because
Mhm.
we have, and like we talked about in our previous conversation, we had known records, like you said, that we were already here. I think from my research, I found that one of the oldest modern day buildings was a Moorish mosque in America. I think it's even standing today. It's out. I think it's one of those. I, Nebraska or somewhere out there. Like it's called I think they changed the name to the Corn Mosque or something like that. But we know the Moors were here. We know that these ancient
That was
mounds were here.
that was from
You
the 8th
know,
century or something like that, correct?
yeah,
That
yeah.
mosque.
hmm We know that Native Americans, looking like me and you, were here building mounds, castles, and all different things here. You know,
Mhm.
we know the power shift happened. Okay, when when was it into the power shift happened and we lost power even here in America? And the shift was made from
Yeah,
all of these Native American these Native American chiefs. Because I was advised, I was some research I was doing is that a lot of these pictures that you see of black people being lynched, they were a lot of these people were the chiefs that were already here, getting just strung up and lynched because they know they were chiefs of that specific area and land. You know what I mean? What happened with that power shift, and when was the power shift? Like I'm more so modern day, I guess I would say, in which that last line of the Native American chiefs were started to be wiped out, and that law came in. When the name was switched.
did it come
Um,
back on?
yeah, you bet. I think. Let me see. Well, you spinning. Well, can you? Oh man.
Peace.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm
I
not sure
lost
what
you on the
Instagram, right?
lost you in
Yeah,
the IG stream.
yeah, I saw it. Let me see. I think it's coming back up. Yeah, yeah, but basically, you're asking me when the power shift. When the
Yeah,
power
because
shift happened.
yeah, well, like when because I was kind of like I was painting a picture of like we Native American, Nubians, blacks, whatever you want to call. Well, I'm not gonna say blacks. Native American, woolly-haired people were sitting here, and then we saw all these people, arguing and fighting out like off the coast. The British. You know what I'm saying? We're like, oh, what's going down? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And eventually, that all poured into the land, and then, we started getting in the mix. You know what I'm saying? So when did things start falling down on that aspect? You know,
Brother, if I'm just gonna give my opinion on that, right?
mhm,
So my opinion would be that happened as early as I'm not gonna say 7-Eleven,
mhm,
but not too much further after that.
mm,
Although we held that sway for 800 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
While we were there, we took on, some of the Europeans' culture.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we strayed after their deities.
Mm.
Um, we gave up Moorish virtue for European vices, to put it in the words of Jose Pimenta Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So by giving up our virtues, our principles
Mm-hmm.
for vices and gods that we knew nothing of,
Mm-hmm.
we gave up our power right there. Um, you know,
Oh, I see
I
what you're
don't I
saying.
don't I don't have any issues with what anybody does, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
all know when if you have a cup of coffee and you start adding milk to it,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you add enough milk, you're gonna have mostly milk,
Yeah.
right?
Is
Um,
is your IG live coming back on?
let me see. It's doing something following. Let's see if I can get back on here another way.
I think I'm following
How
you
do
here. Hmm?
okay, there you go. Request to join.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Well,
just accept the join.
yeah, it was just kind of sitting there. What was I saying? I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, you were just saying about the putting the milk to the coffee. No, and that's an interesting way to look at it because it's kind of like I'm gonna go back to this. As we deal with just dealing with like we know about cycles in time. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Moon cycles, sun cycles, certain people having melanated beings being in a sun cycle and having, that energy and cycle behind it to rule into whatever the case may be. And then moon cycles come in and they lose that, and other people power transfers come in, and other people that it's their time to rule, so they're gonna rule. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because if they didn't, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
So obviously the Europeans had backing, to be able to take, this and just run around, spread all their languages all over the world.
Yeah.
Like you said, their culture all over the world. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, Obviously that was a time that happened, and I guess um, and I'm understanding that now because seems like and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like it was more than just it was a power transfer at the highest level in which
Yeah.
everything was just lost because it was like a time for it to be lost. And
That's right.
yeah.
No, you're right. Because it was like you said, a combination of things. So yeah, all
Hmm.
the stars had lined up.
Yeah,
Um, from what I understand, the elders already knew what was happening.
exactly.
This is why you get your Masonic temples and different
Hmm.
things popping up
Hmm.
in Europe, different orders,
Hmm.
because Moors were giving these lessons out,
Hmm.
and you know, and teaching the European how to preserve those lessons,
Mm.
to keep them secret. Um,
Yeah.
they're more sacred, but they chose for them to keep them secret. And, so they played their part and they did
Hmm.
what they needed to do. And when
Yeah.
you look at it, people, I've heard a lot of people make, I guess you can say they've, you know, had their opinions about the temple because one of our lessons, says um, that black, according to science, means death, right?
Hmm.
And but without really knowing how our lessons work, or you know without having a certain understanding, it's hard to take that when since 1960 whatever you've been
Hmm.
saying I'm black and I'm proud,
Yeah.
right? And
Exactly.
so now at 2022 it's kind of hard for certain people to be like, well, I'm black. Well, all I would say, the cognitive dissonance is very strong, right?
Hmm.
Because all we got to do is look in the mirror, or we look at ourselves on IG. We're clearly brown,
Hmm.
right? Clearly,
Mm-hmm.
even the darkest one of us, the darkest people on the planet, the Yarwa people of the Andamanese Islands, are not black.
Mm-hmm.
They are extremely dark brown, to where sometimes the hue becomes even bluish.
Mm-hmm. Bluish.
But the test been done. You can pull up the science. There's not one black skinned individual, and in fact, a lot of times you'll even see on Facebook or IG, maybe a beautiful dark skinned sister, right? And they'll be like, "Oh, black is beautiful," but these people, which I have no problem with the color, obviously, but these people are making a claim, right, based on poor lighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who does photography or has any kind of background in photography or in videography knows that you have to have certain lighting, and people of darker skin, the less lighting you have, it can make you appear black, and that's
Mm-hmm.
an effect that you can
Mm-hmm.
create through lighting. So things like this people aren't aware of, and the general public doesn't know these things, so
Mm.
it just and they just accept it. It's just like when you started talking about earlier, some of the music, right? So
Mm-hmm.
low natured and low grade,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the beat sounds good and the music in
Mm-hmm.
it sounds really good. So they could be saying the worst thing in the world, and
Mm-hmm. And you still listening to it, just
you're
nodding it.
you're agreeing.
Yep.
You're like,
Yeah.
yes. So you're training your subconscious mind, yes,
Exactly.
you know.
No.
Um, and that's something we got to be careful of.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and I don't want to get off topic, but I just wanted to deal with that because I think it's important because when we go into
I agree.
the topic, even the word itself, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so again, not to get off that topic, but what I was saying about black according to death. Um, so when we're saying this, we're actually talking about necrosis,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's called in science. It's called black death,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the only person that has black skin was somebody whose skin is actually dead or dying.
Mm.
So the skin of a dead person, as they begin to putrefy and the
Mm-hmm.
gases are flowing through, the body turns purple, blue, and then eventually gray and black,
Mm.
right? And especially those whose skin is not melanated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why they typically will have quicker funerals.
Mm-hmm.
They hurry up and get them in the ground before their body degrades too much. The skin color turns,
They ain't gonna look
right?
the same.
That's
They
right.
gonna go from a Larry to Leroy real quick.
That's exactly the skin actually does turn black
Mm-hmm.
in a dead person and in decaying flesh. So this
Mm-hmm.
this is like a real key. And when our lessons are speaking of this, it's actually speaking of like the alchemical laws and how it works. So like for instance, when you look at Asar or
Mm-hmm.
Osiris, right? Um, he's he's colored in different colors.
Mm-hmm.
So in his living form, he's brown.
Mm-hmm.
He's brown skin. But in his dead form, he's black
Mm-hmm.
or white,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or he's even green,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are stages of alchemical change.
Mm-hmm.
And the black is something in the alchemy called negredo,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the negredo phase is speaking of the deep, dark, murky, black waters for this conversation of the Nile, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason why it's black is because of the soot,
The
the
sit
degradation, the dead material that is now getting
drop to
ready
the
to
bottom.
give life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why you get the green bud of uh, the lotus
Lotus.
flower,
Mm-hmm.
right? The green comes out, it releases its pad. It's a little like a lily pad, and then from there the white, right? So we got the black Asar, then we got the green Asar representing that new life, and then the white, that's the fruition of that life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So white and black in these terminologies is not referring to skin color, but we're talking about, if you will, content of character. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the level you're on, and our people right now are in obviously a dead state.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but so black is a level, right? It's like a mind state.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we're gonna deal with it, right, let's deal with it. So we have never called ourselves black in
Yeah.
history. There's one claim that's made by one of our ancestors and some others, and honest to Brother Renoko Rashidi, because I actually study his work and like a lot of the stuff that he's put out. But that being said, he did share some information, and some other brothers have kind of regurgitated it about some of the Akkadians referring to themselves as the black-headed ones. But when you actually go into that research, um, I want to say the word was like Gog or something to
Mm-hmm.
that effect. And what that meant when it said black-headed, it was actually saying sick head. So it was saying that somebody had a cough or somebody was sick. Because when I heard this, I actually went into the whole linguistics of this ancient language to try to find it. And when I found it, I could tell that whoever shared this information originally did not give again, they like took it out of context. So they didn't show that the term black and sick were synonymous for those people in those times. And they did not identify as sick heads or blackheads. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They
Yeah.
had their own nationality and identity in their lexicon. There was just an identifier of blackhead, right? But it didn't mean like the black-headed ones. It was like if you have a black head, that just means that you're sick, like, and not even like sick in the head, but like you need to see someone, like you need some
Mm.
herbs or something. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
and that so never in history have we called ourselves that. However, we can find if you do a simple, just to go to edamonline.com and just type in more, MOOR, the noun, right? And you'll find that uh, that terminology, what they'll do, it'll basically give you a trace and it'll trace it back to the original name of the people. And so it says the original name of the people, right? But it also says that the Greeks used this term for the term black because of the relationship of their skin color to ours, right? And so they began to use the term more at that time, moros or mavros in Greek. Um, they would say, oh, th- they would use the term mavros as black, but the term in Greek for black is malanos, right? So again, this is like slang, and over time, so then we're gonna fast forward uh, 700 years, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Moors are in Spain. Uh, the proper term for our people in Spanish is moreno,
Mm-hmm.
right? However, the derogatory term is negro,
Negative. Yeah.
derogatory term.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when you use that term in Spanish to identify a human being, it actually means slave.
Mm.
Okay. So it can mean slave man, slave
Like
woman,
woman.
right? Depending negra or negro. That's
Mm-hmm.
it's called a nominative. Matter of fact, I think I have it close by. Pull it up so I can get you to, in case somebody wants to do some research. Yeah. So the masculine or feminine noun, black man or black woman, uh, trabajar. This is how to use it in a sentence. Trabajar como un negro, right? And you
Work.
could say, or un negra. That's right. So it's known as
Oh,
informal
slave. I see what you're saying. Work.
and
Okay.
figurative, to work like a slave.
Work like a slave. I see. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So that and now, right? So now we have to back up a little bit, right? Because like, where does this term? Because we know that from negro, right? You get the modern term negro, right, in
Mm-hmm.
English,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that the term negro in Spanish means black. The English term uh, black, right, it comes from the Germanic
Mm-hmm.
Blake, right?
Lake. Mm-hmm.
which basically means burnt, right? Like a bleach burn, right? And it also translates to pale. Like, so even the term black doesn't actually mean
In
like
black. Yeah. Like the color.
if you go back far enough, it doesn't have the same connotation as we know
Connotation.
black
Yeah.
to mean, right?
Oh.
So these are things that we have to look
Yeah.
at. And
No, and that makes perfect sense because okay. And I'm happy you broke all that down because
mm,
doing that, you can start to see how words have meaning behind them. Okay. So all y'all seen that y'all can do your research and or you can even understand that these words have meaning and even getting to this topic right now. Okay, so we see the power transfer go in effect. Okay.
yeah.
And then there had to be these individuals, that know our story and are trying now to keep it hidden from us, you know. So it's a total onslaught of hiding, lying, whatever the case may be, modern day more so, you know what I mean? Because I know dealing with the music industry, you know what I'm saying? Music, cinema, the biggest forms of propaganda out there.
Mm.
Who, I mean, I'm even talking if you can go here, even to the extraterrestrial aspect of it, if we can go that right, even down to the human and the transfer. Why, why did they want to make this being, this degraded being, to make them, to lose their history, to lose their tongue, to flood them with drugs, all these different things just to create this low individual. You know what I'm saying? What was the mind? Who did this? When did this start? What's the mindset of doing all this?
So I mean, you have to realize that most of these things were done through, if you will, ritual work.
Mm,
Like you can't, like, if you look at the magnitude of what we were doing at that time,
mm-hmm,
what we were ruling at that time,
mm-hmm,
how vast,
mm-hmm,
you know, uh, our domain was, our dominion was,
mm-hmm.
then the only because no one was able to take physical um, control of us, not without some consent.
Some help. Yeah, some help.
There had to be consent.
Mm,
So you got to think about this when, like I mentioned, so 1492, right? Granada Falls.
mm-hmm,
The Moors have, I think it was three options. You either leave, accept Christianity, and stay, or otherwise you're beheaded.
yeah, I've read that. Mm-hmm,
That was it. That was our choice at that time. And
mm-hmm,
so um, some of us stayed, some of us bowed down,
mm-hmm.
some of us, you know, just was like, look, there's no way I'm denying my God. And others was like, hey, I'm out. I'm headed back to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on at the same time was there was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of wars in
Mm-hmm.
Africa at the time. So different nations were warring with different nations.
Mm-hmm.
And what they ended up finding out um, was that if they were to sell their brother to this European, originally the Portuguese and then the Spanish, um, they didn't have to deal with all the blood, because what they would do is do a ritual sacrifice and basically kill all of the prisoners of war. So, the easiest thing to do was to go ahead and sell them. You go ahead and sell your prisoners. Now you don't have to kill them. They would think that the blood is off of their hands, if you will, but they sold these men and women to people who had other plans, right? Because again, they sold them because they were at war with them. So these were prisoners of war. They
Mm-hmm.
were they were just going to murder them. But in places like Benin, they kind of caught on quick. People don't know that Benin is the most notorious of all of the slave kingdoms, as I'll call them for this conversation. And these were nations in Africa that were notorious for being involved in the slave trade, selling their people to the European. Now, again, like I said, it started with them selling prisoners of war. Then they began traveling outside of their domain to capture their brothers from other tribes and other nations, and started kidnapping them and selling them to the European. And later on, they began to kidnap their own and sell them. You know, so greed is really the mind state. You know, when you can sell your own brother. You know, and again, so this is dealing with the hard history, right?
Yeah.
We could point fingers and try to blame the European all day, and everybody played their part. But if we don't deal with our part in this situation,
This is Amistad Part 2.
then what do we? Why even bring it up?
Yeah.
Don't bring it up if you're scared to deal with the real facts behind
If you
it.
only want to deal with half truths.
Yeah, because I mean, you can point fingers all day, but until you deal with yourself, you're not really doing a whole lot.
So okay, and that's a good point. Okay, and I understand what you're saying about the ritual thing.
Oh, let me touch on that real quick.
Go ahead.
The ritual piece. So, so one of the rituals, if you will, and this is my opinion. When you read the Willie Lynch papers, that's a ritual. You know, it literally says in there, we do this for the next 300 years.
Straight spell. Yep.
Yeah. Then you can go into there's a document that Moors read in Philadelphia every October. Brother Isaac Hopkins Bay actually holds the event, and it's a recitation of the documents that were signed by the Continental Congress, if I'm not mistaken, just prior to the Constitution being signed, or right in at about that time. I think the document is dated 1774, if I'm not mistaken. And in this document, it speaks to, and this is George Washington and his whole crew, basically saying, we're going to remove the turbans and fezzes from their heads and the sandals from their feet. We'll make sure that we never tell them who they are. Okay, so they basically made an oath, right? These European so-called founding fathers made an oath, and it's recorded. And this is what I was going to get to as far as I'll touch on it. So when they made this oath, right? They made the oath not to tell us who we are. What's the Masonic secret? You know the secret, the Masonic secret, right? When they're dealing with Hiram Abiff and knocked in the head, laid on the rest.
King Tut.
So some Masons will tell you, you're the secret, right? You're the secret.
Yeah.
So again, what would be the last spell? What did you hear coming up? I know what I heard coming up. You want to keep something from a nigga, you put it in a book.
Put it in the book.
Right. So if you were brought over here speaking 5 languages, right? For those who were brought over, those people were quite literate, extremely literate.
Yeah.
Okay. So these weren't idiots that they were. You got to realize that the people that they brought over here, why do you think the NFL is the way it is?
Exactly.
The NBA is what it is. The people that they were targeting, those Moors in West Africa, we're talking about 7-8 foot. We're talking about some giants.
Mm-hmm.
these Moors, these Berbers, man. When you today, the Berbers are still the same Amazigh people, these nobles, these Moors, still 70 feet tall on the regular, but they kick it in the desert. They just kind of kicking it, doing their
Mm-hmm.
own thing. They got their own.
I've seen the pictures. I've seen pictures of them.
Yeah. So these are the people that were targeted. So when I mentioned the Papal Bulls earlier, dealing with uh, the transatlantic slave trade, the people that were brought from Africa, they were the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the first, say the first 200 years, that was top notch. We were talking about they weren't just getting Larry and Buddy off the corner.
Mm-hmm.
These people had skills,
Yeah,
trades.
they knew what they were looking for, and they
How,
went to go get it.
how do you think they built the White House?
Mm-hmm.
They always try to make that claim. Oh, slaves built the White House. That's quite an impressive piece of work, especially being that it's how old is that building now?
Yeah.
I think that's quality craftsmanship, to
Mm-hmm.
say the least,
Yeah.
right? Look
Mm-hmm.
at all these antebellum homes. You tell me
Exactly.
slaves built
Exactly.
that?
Yeah.
Man,
Nah.
they had some great skill because those homes are
Mm-hmm.
still
They
those are
still
still the nicest homes on the
intact.
block
Mm-hmm.
where they exist.
Yeah.
So,
I think
but
about that a lot, actually.
yeah, no, and think I don't know if you ever seen that picture of El Hajj El Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, where he's teaching on the term black.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
on the
have seen.
chalkboard, he's showing the translations or the transliterations. And the last one is corpse,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he's talking about necro,
Mm-hmm.
necrophiliac, right?
Mm-hmm.
Necro can either mean black arts, it can mean black or it can mean death. And black death, like we were just talking about, necrosis, right? So again, just bringing it back full circle. And then go ahead, you got to ask.
Yeah, I'm just listening and I'm
Yeah.
formulating a question
Yeah.
from what we're talking about. And it's like, so even though, like we were saying earlier, you talking about, oh, just pointing your fingers at the white man for doing all this stuff and whatever the case may be, it seems like that it was a combination of different people with specific agendas to to ultimately not only do the physical enslavement but also the mental enslavement.
Oh yeah. Oh,
You know,
it was
and
multi-tiered attack for sure.
and also from what you're saying and what I've known, and like the ritual aspect of it. I remember I was talking to the brother Rod Hayes, and he was talking about kind of like what we're talking about now, as far as it was like rituals, ritual battles going on. You know what I'm saying? Metaphysical battles between like pretty much the mindset of the people. You know, um, the original people that knew who they were, and now were trapped in a place where they forgot everything. So,
Yeah.
I never really. That's pretty deep. But the more and more I do my research, the more and more I'm starting to see that it wasn't like I guess you would call them what dirty Moors, right?
Mhm.
Like you had these individuals, that just like you said earlier, greed. So they were working hand in hand with these cats on the physical tip, but also the spiritual tip to hold these people down.
Oh yeah. No, that's a fact.
So, so going back to the title of here, so it is not just a simple situation of just white supremacy was part of it. Greed of all these different things were the combination of creating this necro, this no low life, this low thinking being. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It was a combination to create the nigger
that's right.
from
Yeah.
what almost from all classes, not classes, from all of the people that were in the ruling power and had the power,
Mhm.
be it dirty blacks, dirty Moors, and the powers of the European white supremacist doctrine.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to it really because let's go back into Europe for a second, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, these Moors had been here for 800 years, so they had married into these families.
Mm-hmm.
So now they got children that are mixed, grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
that are, I guess what they call them quadroons and then octoroons. If you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, Louisiana
Mm-hmm.
style, what should I call it? Colorism, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, caste systems.
Caste systems, yeah.
And so now you have, children who are identifying with uh, their European mothers,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, as opposed to their African fathers,
Fathers, yeah.
and are siding with them. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of double, what do you call it, double and triple cross. Like there's some stories behind it, some history. If anybody's interested in this type of stuff, Jose Pimenta Bay does excellent lectures on these topics, and he's somebody that you can actually reach out to and just ask questions about the stuff, and he'll be glad to go in on it. Um, but yeah, so you had all of those multiple things happening, and it was happening over here as well.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? So it wasn't, and then depending on where you were, some of that stuff didn't even exist. Like there were in certain places. I don't know if you're aware, but certain places like what we know as racism today.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at that like
Yeah, yeah.
some places in
I,
the world they don't really understand that.
they don't understand our this American racism because I was just talking last night, even before about there's a Disney movie called Encanto, and
Yeah, mhm.
you seen it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you seen I don't know the family itself. When you look at it,
Yeah,
it's literally got
the full spectrum.
European all the way to black in the family.
That's right.
And you know, I mean, I know this. I know you know this because you lived it. But I had people that told me specifically, like just like you're saying, that from like South America, Colombia, whatever the case may be, they were like, we don't have those problems because all of our family look different, but we're all family.
Yeah, that's right.
And I wanted to say this real quick because you made me think about the movie, The Invitation of Life.
Hmm.
You remember that movie?
I'm
Um,
trying to make a
it
link
was
to
the movie. It was an older movie. I don't know about 40s or 50s, maybe like that. But anyway,
it.
the the mom was black and the daughter was half, but she just shunned the mother so much. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because she wanted to pass as white. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? Yeah, and eventually, she passed so
Yeah.
hard, she broke her mom's heart, and mom died. And as but deep movie is real
Yeah.
interesting. But going along with what you're saying, in addition, um, I read before that in Brazil back in the day, very something similar. The Portuguese would marry the slaves, have kids, and they would take the kids and send them off to Europe to get taught. And they come back and they would be, all these plantations just
Oh,
brutalizing the people. They were even worse.
ain't nothing changed.
Yeah,
It's still
I
happening
see.
to this very day.
I see what you're saying.
To this very day. No, like
Yeah.
really, like even
Mm-hmm.
still to this day, there's still in the continent especially, there's still colonialism going
Come
on.
on in. Yeah.
And these colonists will, and like for instance, the Chinese are doing it. They're
Yeah.
having babies with these African
I've
sisters.
seen that. Mm-hmm.
They're definitely going to be sending those children to China
To China. Mm-hmm.
to be educated, and then they
Mm-hmm.
will send them back to Africa to rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
it's really that simple.
even from your point on that China aspect, because I saw research before how China wanted to see all the Chinese wanted to see where it came from. They did the DNA, all the scientists came together and they come to find out they all came from Africa. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I
So
was saying earlier. They're
hmm
98% African,
yeah,
2%.
98, exactly right, man. So no, now what you're saying is heavy, man. It's heavy. And I never really thought about that perspective. I mean, I knew the information, but I never really put it together like we talking about now because it's like this was like what they call in wrestling when there's like uh a handicap match.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You got
Yeah.
you got like 3 against 1, 5, 4 against 1. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
so in this time frame of our fall, every not only like you said earlier, not only every aspect of the metaphysical and occult and rituals were thrown at us, but it was also done on the physical. So, you know, again, that's like again with all that going against you, you can't rise up, and you're not supposed to rise up until it's time for you to rise up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to think about it. Everything from, go back to the Willie Lynch letter. Think
Hmm.
about the brutality that's spoken of in
Yeah.
there, but
Hmm.
then think about the brutality that's not spoken in there. They don't.
Okay.
It doesn't speak of the buck breaking
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
fact that they were doing that like in front of others, like it was
Others,
happening in front of the children, in front
family,
of
and
the
stuff.
wives. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't just psychological to the person; it was psychological to the whole community, to all of those
Yeah.
who were there watching. And think about how that transferred into the generations.
Exactly.
That
I
was
better say passing
that
down.
was the idea, uh, you know, uh, in Willie Lynch. We're gonna so psychologically mess these
Hmm.
people up that their children's children won't want to
Yeah.
do nothing about
Now,
it. You get what I'm
now
saying?
we're gonna press the tab button to modern day.
There you go.
Even though
Hmm.
um even though they're still trying to do this, we know that there's an awakening happening right now. You
For
know,
sure.
I saw this one lady. There was a white lady. She she was on the street somewhere, and the brother asked her a question. She said, "Black man or white man?" And the Caucasian lady said, "Black man, because they're melanated, and I want my babies to have a chance for the future." You know what I'm
I
saying?
saw it.
So you saw it. So okay, like I said, and everywhere I go now, you know what I'm saying. When you turn on TV, you see mixed race. You see the commercials with a white woman with a black man with mixed race kids. You know what I'm saying? First off,
Right.
to each his own. I ain't who you love, who you love. I ain't studying on that because it don't got nothing to do with me. Um,
That's right.
but now that dark, ugly, black Sambo baboon looking boola boola man with his nose that they had back in the 30s or whatever,
Yeah.
he is now revered and loved because to a certain degree, of course. But the
Mhm.
image, even I've only been on this planet for 40 some odd years, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a huge change in the way that we're perceived as black men and even black women. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? So it went from the black is whack to black and melanin is it.
Mhm.
Where do you see that this transfer itself? Is it because of the day it is? Is the cat at the bag about science and melanin? What do you feel about that?
It's probably a combination of all those things.
Hmm.
You know, they now have melanin capsules, um,
Hmm.
where Europeans can tan, from taking pills. So it's not that our features and you know, it's not that our natural essences are not perceived as beautiful or perceived as or good, right?
Hmm.
But I think for a long time, um, let me just say it like this. So 20, I think 2001, right? I graduated from acupuncture college in that January. I then immediately went to study computers, right,
Hmm.
for a year, and I graduated that December of 2001. I got two job offers, um, one from um, Xerox and one from Coca Cola.
Hmm.
These were IT positions. right? 21 years ago. I had a 3.8 GPA. I was like triple, quadruple certified. You know, I had my A plus, my Net plus, my low voltage, and my CST certification, computer service technician, all that. And so I'm thinking I'm getting ready to jump into this job market. Now, at the time, I had locks past my waist, right? Um, and both of these companies came to me via one of my professors, and basically said, "Hey, we really want to hire him. Is there any way you could basically persuade him to cut his hair?" Yeah, right. It's you know why it's funny now? Because everybody in IT has locks, right? Europeans, right? Like they can have whatever hairstyle they want. They can tattooed up. But when I came into the computer game, IT game,
Whole
I was
different
not
ball
it.
game.
Nah, they told you up front, if you got tats, you need to wear long sleeves. You need to have collar
Cover it up.
shirts, the whole nine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were trying to get me to cut my locks. I was like, what? So yeah, like they love, you know, and people in general, the world loves us, but there's also a love, it's like a love-hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about how we view a lot of times if you live in the US, how you might view those who live in Africa. You're
Mm-hmm.
thinking, you know, jungle. You're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, nose bone. You
Mm-hmm.
might be
All that
thinking
crazy
woman's
stuff.
paw, right? You're thinking flies and hunger.
Fat bellies
But
and stuff.
you know how many people I've met since I was a youth from Africa who are just like wealthy, like like dumb wealthy. They come here and ball
Me
out.
too.
They come
Mm-hmm.
here and look at people like they peasants.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa.
You don't
It
have
give
a
you
driver?
gives you a
You
different
don't. Your
perspective.
dad doesn't own a bank?
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, I think the first Nigerian I met when I was probably like 9 or 10. Um, his brother was a prince.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Me too.
So the first African I meet was a prince. I'm
Me
like,
too.
so I
From
never.
Nigeria.
So even though I've seen the media and I've also like my personal experience is not what I'm seeing. So there's definitely some dissonance in that. But
Mm-hmm.
that being said, the same thing goes for people who are outside of the U.S. when they look at us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always many people from outside the U.S. think of us as some type of gangsters,
Mm-hmm.
thugs, uh, somebody that's drinking, standing on a corner,
What's that?
because that
Menace
is
to society.
there you go. But that's the image that other
Mm-hmm.
places are given about us. They make sure they
Exactly.
take the worst of us and put it out front.
I don't know if you saw that post I did with Frances Quest Westland was talking about that same thing we're talking about right now. She was like, some people in Scandinavia, I think they said they hit her up. She was just like, yo, they were like, yo, do you understand that all these crazy movies they showing y'all, we're taking all that in, and that's what we think about y'all folks. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
the illest form of propaganda you could ever possibly imagine, man. Like
Yeah.
no matter where you are, you know what I'm saying? No matter what it all is, it's like and just an onslaught. Because, you know, I told I told I think I was telling my son, I was just like, yo, when we grew up, we didn't have the Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? The closest thing we had to Black Panther was Blade.
Yeah.
And maybe what's the old boy from what was his name? The Brown Hornet from Bill
Oh,
Cosby.
hey, that was one of my favorites.
you know, and Bill Cosby's so ill for doing that because
The
them everybody.
Brown.
Yeah, man. Because they remember they all used to run home to see the Brown Hornet.
Oh, yeah.
Man, Bill Cosby, man. It's,
Hey,
that's
you know, that's
yeah,
a
man.
that's a whole nother show.
Man, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Another victim, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
But yeah, but and it's interesting now because I saw another group of it was, you might have saw that clip I put up too. It was two white dudes, and they would look like rich white dudes. They were talking to these sisters. They were talking about this is new technology in which you could take your egg and put our nucleus in it, and then all this kind. He sees that y'all are there's no finest genetic material like y'all have. Y'all have a monopoly on it, and we want it. You know what I'm saying? And all this kind of stuff. And it's like now it's like the cat is out the bag where everything is like you can't lie and say, you know, um, you can't lie and just say that you don't even that same clip I was talking about. When it was a different clip, and it was a white lady breaking down like with the origins of white people and stuff. So she was saying some factual stuff, but I was looking at the comic section, and the white people were like, how can I be superior if I can't go to the car without getting sunburned?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And they were like, these were white people saying that. These were Caucasians, like, just like, yeah, I ain't really that stuff y'all said before. It ain't really flying. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because do you think it is because of the fact of like science coming out about, the importance of melanin and where the true science is talking about
Yeah.
like you said. Hmm.
Again, I think it's two things. So you
Hmm.
made some good points. I'm gonna weave it all together.
Hmm.
Is it's the media, right?
Hmm.
So it's not that the information hasn't been available,
Exactly. True that.
because we've had what's the sister Jewel Pilgrim been talking about this
Hmm.
for 30, 40, 30 years plus,
Yep.
right? But just more recently, people are like, oh, the the work that Jewel Pilgrim's been doing and talking about for 30
Hmm.
years is now
Hmm.
like seeping into the consciousness of the people. But
Yeah.
remember, if you listen to the old Jewel Pilgrim stuff,
Hmm.
she was going to all of these conferences,
Hmm.
these scientific conferences, these articles and these papers that have been written, these scientific
Hmm.
papers, peer-reviewed studies.
Hmm.
They're available to everyone.
Yeah.
That stuff isn't. It's not private. It's not secret.
Yeah.
You have to know where to look. You have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that being said, a lot of times we don't necessarily know where to look or know what we're looking for. So the information is there though. So I think it's somebody and it's obviously for a reason,
Hmm.
right? Because think about how many years um, they've been pushing the agenda of abortion,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
How long they've been collecting this genetic material,
Hmm.
right? That is invaluable, invaluable. So
Hmm.
all you telling me, all of these women, uh, Moorish, Latino women that are low income have been going to get these abortions. They're not really telling them what's happening with with the,
The
I
fetus.
don't even know the right word to use for
Hmm.
what they've taken out of their body, the
Hmm.
baby and the remnants. Um, and they take that and they sell that on the market.
Hmm.
Those cells, um, that has a lot of what is it called? The stem
Stem cells.
cells. In it.
Hmm.
That stuff. They're even using it as food additives.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't even want to get into that, but it's like, bro, like it's really deep.
Yeah. Even being like obviously both of us being melanated people, the time Dr. York, you remember the book, The Melanite Children?
I
You
think I've
remember that
seen that.
book? It had a sorrow on the front and he was green.
Okay.
Of course, I'm walking around my whole life. Of course, I'm like 23 years old, you know what I'm saying? 24 when I got this book. And I'm looking at the cover and I'm reading through the book and everything, and he's breaking down melanin and all this kind of stuff. I was like, how come I never was taught this? I'm living with it for my whole life, and I was never taught what this is
Yeah.
until I pick up this book, you
Hey,
know.
nope.
And I'm gonna tell you something, man. I'm gonna keep it real, bro. And this goes in addition to many books I wrote, even I read by Doc. But when I read that book, man, that shattered my skull because I was just like, I'm gonna tell you, like even I said in the book, my book I wrote, I used to want to be white, man. You know what I'm saying? Because I was all the people, I didn't have no, all the images I saw of greatness was white.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So, they have a picture of a little, I think it was in the 80s, and they had this, said something like, make sure the images are a certain way. It a little black boy looking in the mirror at Superman. You know what I mean?
I've seen that
He don't
picture.
look nothing like, he don't look looking nothing like Superman. But like I said in the book, is like I didn't know anything about anything. All I know is that every aspect of me was ugly, was bad, and all this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Until I started like getting knowledge itself. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
It,
them books,
it is
man,
designed
crack my
that way.
skull, man.
Yeah, it's designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a conscious war being
Mm-hmm.
waged, on the minds of the people in general,
Mm-hmm.
um, on our minds
Yeah.
especially. Um, and I think um, I think when you look at things like the Willie Lynch, right, it
Mm-hmm.
also it demonstrates the power of conditioning
Mm-hmm.
and environment, right? So if you put, you know, something or someone in a certain environment, you're
Mm-hmm.
typically going to get, you know, uh, you remember that movie Trading Places, Eddie
Mm-hmm.
Murphy, you know, that was an excellent example. You saw
Mm-hmm.
what happened when they put Eddie Murphy in the environment with the stockbrokers
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. And then when they put Dan Aykroyd
Mm-hmm.
on the streets, he turned
Mm-hmm.
into a common hoodlum.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't Dan Aykroyd had went to all of the finest schools,
Mm-hmm.
had butlers and drivers and everything. Next thing you know, he's sticking folks up, putting
Mm-hmm.
guns in people's face, you know. So it kind of lends to the, something that I heard a while back, and I definitely keep it rattling in my mind, is that, we were always told early that, money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I just come to know, the realization, not just now, but I've come to the realization over time that it's really poverty
Mm-hmm.
that's the root of all evil.
I agree 100%.
You know what I mean? That's when you're in that state where you're scratching to survive, when you're just trying to get something in your belly,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Especially if you have a family to care for,
Mm-hmm.
like you're damn near ready to do anything it takes.
Anything to feed them. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in that survival mode, you're more likely to do things that would harm someone else
Mm-hmm.
or harm
Because you
yourself or
don't care.
put your freedom at jeopardy because
Mm-hmm.
you got to eat, right? And so, yeah, that's really what I attribute it to, man. And the conditioning
Mm-hmm.
is the same thing as the environment.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
like, I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but you take I don't know, a 10-ton or 5-ton elephant, right? But you start him out as a baby and he's 300 pounds and you tie a big chain to him and he can't not, he knows that tree is his tree. So by the time he's an adult, now all they need is just a little bit of twine,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of string. That elephant will not leave that post because he
Mm-hmm.
sees that thing around his foot. He knows
Mm-hmm.
that tree. He knows, hey, this is where
Can't
I'm
go
stuck
nowhere.
right here. Can't go nowhere. But he could
Yeah.
just walk away if he chose.
Snap it easily.
But he doesn't know. He
Yeah,
doesn't
he
have
don't know.
he doesn't have knowledge of self.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, man, because for me, looking back from all these great master teachers, even going back to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, even, from there going forward, really, and even the I would say the boost or the booming of the
Mhm.
90s of all these, master teachers, and I keep on saying this before, it's like they laid a foundation in which they set this up. It seems like for now,
Oh yeah.
because this new generation of the kids, you know what I'm saying, that are coming out, jumping on this information. We've seen as people. Some of these people that we see on YouTube, we seen them physically lecturing. You know what I'm saying? We've seen them, shook hand with them. You know what I'm saying? These kids
Undoubtedly.
didn't see that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And but this information they were laying down is so heavy. You know what I'm saying? It's like these people, these younger kids are just being so attracted to this and they're running with it, man. You know what I'm saying? They're like, yo, and they don't care. They're like so fearless when it comes to like they're so fearless when it comes not well fearless as well, but they're so you can't tell them, oh, so and so did this, so and so did that. They're like, nah, if they said it, they're lying. You know what I'm saying? They're like
Yeah.
past the BS.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just for the information. I'm talking about, everybody, man. I'm talking about Dr. York, Dr. Delbert Blair, you know what I'm saying? Hakeem Bey. I can go on and on and on about these, but these younger cats are like, and I think that's honestly, Dr. Delbert Blair always talks about like these new souls coming here and just how strong these kids are and for the specific day and time, that
Yeah.
we're in now,
Hmm. No,
because I did a post today, you know what I'm saying? We're in unprecedented times, bro. Could you say for yourself that you would think that that you would think you would see these things that are happening right now?
man. I have to say, yeah.
Hmm.
Honestly, um, you know, I don't know if my upbringing was like, I know everybody had their own upbringing,
I,
but I think I
I see.
was,
Yeah.
I think I had a benefit for me in it, for me, being able to kind of have access to, I guess, different types of environments.
Hmm.
So I'll give
Hmm.
an example. Um, I've lived all over, but there was times I grew up. There was a 10-year period where I was going back and forth between Chicago and Texas,
Hmm.
right? And during that time, I literally could be in the creek catching crawfish,
Hmm.
Texas, on one day, and the next day I'd be on 79th and Kingston in Chicago.
Hmm.
You know, so
Hmm.
my like the like my
Yeah.
worldview was
Yeah.
very like I don't even know the word to use, but it was diverse.
Diverse.
Yeah,
Diverse.
I mean, I got to live in Europe for a little while,
Hmm.
see what that was like. Castles and the culture. It's like okay, and I've always just my father's from the islands, so I've been able to see a lot of different ways of living and life.
Hmm.
And although my parents didn't really have a whole lot when I was coming up, I
Hmm.
actually I had the ability to see people who did. I was invited certain places. I was able to
Hmm.
see certain things. I wasn't necessarily privy to live it, but I was able to experience it. Be like,
Experience it.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I agree with you.
I was,
I agree with you.
we when I was little, I don't know if you know about Caprini Green,
Hmm.
but I used to play in Caprini Greens. Like, that's
You
the
saw the
playground.
Candyman?
No,
Oh,
I did the movie, yeah,
you,
but not
you
the
didn't see him in real life, huh?
like we used to go out there just to play basketball, play in the park.
Yeah.
So um, but yeah, man. And so the things we see today, yeah, like I'm rarely surprised
Hmm.
um, by things just because. Yeah,
It it's interesting because I look at some of those books that I got even today. I remember looking at recently one of those books Doc put out, Leviathan. Six remember those thick books,
I had
and I'm
that one.
just like I'm looking at these books. I'm like, was he already here? You know, what I'm saying it's like word for word, like even going back to like Dr. Delbert Blair, like he used to like sit down, and just drop some some prophecies, and I'm just like, you know, he was just like, yo, this is what's happening. This is what's happening, blah, 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 and just be spot on point, man.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of brilliant people
Hmm.
in our community, you know.
Thankfully.
Um, and when you have the ability to absorb massive amounts of information
Hmm.
and then give it back to people
I know, man.
without
Yeah,
batting an eye,
yeah,
you know, it's a blessing at the end of the day.
I agree.
You know, I think both of the individuals you mentioned have had a great impact on people in general,
Hmm.
our people specifically.
Yeah.
And, even though to most of our people, they would be considered left field,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
Um,
Hmm.
but in the last couple of years, the, some of the spacey talk and some of the alien talk is now like, that's like news. It's like,
Exactly.
that's that's morning
It's not
news.
taboo.
Yeah, it's not no more,
Uh,
you
it
know, because
it
the Navy
it's
pilots and say, hey, man, there's something else out here with
hmm
us.
hmm
The Pentagon done came out, president them dropped the
yeah,
files. They like, hey, some
yeah,
stuff out
exactly.
here.
Yeah.
And so to finally have a little disclosure in that department,
Hmm.
I had somebody, a good friend of mine that I won't mention his name here, but a good friend of mine. I was on a Clubhouse and he was like, I mentioned what we were talking about. Long story short, he was basically like, man, there's a brother in this room right now. He was there. I don't know if you want to speak on it, but he was talking about some high level stuff that
Hmm.
he actually experienced. And when we first started talking about those things, he was a complete
Yeah.
non-believer.
Hmm.
And then one day, you know, we were, we were both standing on the porch, and got a little visit. And ever since, like he still like it's 20 years later, bro.
Yeah.
He's still talking about it. And he's
Hmm.
like, man, he's like, and, the other day he was like, he said, man, he said all the stuff that they talking about now that's going on. He said, you told me this stuff 20 years ago.
Years
He
ago,
was like,
yep.
I thought you was crazy, but he was just being real with me. He's like, but everything you said came real. And he's like,
Yeah,
he
man.
said, he said, I've been telling people about you. Like I hadn't seen him in years. It's been a
Hmm.
long time. We finally reconnected on that app, and but yeah, so it was just interesting, man.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting to me how many things that, like, just like you said, are being confirmed now, that we might have believed back then. We didn't have confirmation, but now NASA's like, I remember Dr. York, he was like, yo, this systems have three suns. And be like, man, he crazy. NASA's like, well, we just found a three sun, star system,
Yeah.
and all these, like you said, so many different things, you know
And
what I
see
mean?
again, look again, like that information has been available. But,
Exactly.
but again, if you're not like, so I remember prior, like pre 2000,
Hmm.
and again, I don't know if we've had this conversation, but I used to actually go like, to the research library, not just
Yeah.
the regular
Remember?
library, but the research library. I get up on the second floor, Auburn Research Library. You go to the second floor. That's where all the
Hmm.
microfiche is.
Yeah,
So you want to check out the microfilm and see what really going on.
really going down. Yeah.
That's what I used to do. I used to
Yeah.
spend my if you will, my free time and like I'd be in the library,
Hmm.
and so there's people like that are going to be out here doing that research and
Hmm.
have certain information that just
Hmm.
the common individual is never going to come across
Yeah.
because they've never been to the fifth floor on the Peachtree
Hmm.
Library downtown,
Hmm.
where that's the
Oh,
research center in that library. You go up to the
yeah.
fifth floor, you get access to things that
So
aren't
you
on the
couldn't imagine.
second third, and fourth.
I'll be tripping because I see now things like I saw an article how there was a huge sinkhole in China,
Mhm.
and underneath the sinkhole there was a whole new There was trees. They said there was animals down there. It was a
Mm,
whole different type of ecosystem, you
wow.
know, underneath. I mean, you can look at. I posted on it. And
Okay,
it goes in more
I'm gonna
detail.
check
But
it out. I didn't see it.
yeah, yeah, I posted on it, and it's like we've been lied so much about. Oh, the Earth, it's a big ball of stuff, magma and that stuff. That come to find out, you got ancient maps that show that the joint is hollow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we've been just so lied to, and it's sad. It's like we have to do like you said, to do that heavy research because all the truth is buried in there.
Yeah, as far as like the hollow earth theories, like a lot of this stuff, man, there's oftentimes, what we call in school truth and falsehood strangely mixed.
Hmm.
So we know that, just common sense, right? The oceans aren't hollow, right? But we go to a place like Missouri
Hmm.
or Arkansas, right? The Ozarks. So you
Hmm.
go into the Ozark Mountains, this is a whole underground world and a
Hmm.
network of caves that are ancient.
Hmm.
And in recent times, our government has built, has paved these tunnels, and now they have highways that stretch for how
Yeah.
many miles? Who knows?
Yeah.
I've
Hmm.
seen some footage from down there, and you could pull this stuff up. Underground cities, um, what I just say? The Ozarks.
Hmm.
There's plenty of documentation on this.
Yeah.
Uh, I've seen a few people like on slide and try to like just turn up in there, like
Hmm.
they follow trucks up in there and have
Hmm.
gone a certain distance and have recorded
Hmm.
it. So yeah, there's plenty of underground tunnels and
Yeah.
hollow
Yeah.
places, you know. So yeah, I'm just careful about how I try to be careful about how I word things.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say the whole planet is hollow per se,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
there's plenty of tunnels and there's underground
Plenty of
things
hollow parts.
that we have no clue about. Like
Yeah.
think about under the city of France,
Hmm. Hmm.
under Paris.
Hmm.
Under Paris, they have what they call the catacombs. It's a
Catacombs.
whole
Yep.
city under the city.
Hmm.
Here in Atlanta, underneath Decatur, it's a whole city. Underneath, I don't know if you've been downtown or whether I think they used to call it the Sam Nunn Federal Building. I think they
Hmm.
recently changed the name. It's right by the dome.
Hmm.
Do you ever notice it's all this under, like there was a place where you used to be able to turn in front of the Sam Nunn Federal Building.
Hmm.
They shut it
Oh
off to the
yeah.
public now, but you could go underground and end up under Atlanta.
I know
You
exactly
remember
what you're
that?
talking about. Hmm.
You remember that?
Hello.
Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. There's a whole when you go downtown, there's a whole nother level of the city. If you ever seen that movie with Damon Wayans and his little brother, um, it's called Money something, Mo Money.
Hmm.
You see Mo Money?
Hmm.
So remember some of those early scenes where he's playing the homeless guy, and he's basically scamming that guy out of some money for a
Hmm.
TV. He's playing like he's taking heroin and nodding off. So that area where they're like running across the streets and you can see like the L train above and looks like they're under some stuff, under some streets. They are under the city of Chicago. There's a whole nother like sub
Yeah.
city, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. you know, it's interesting. I remember listening to Dr. Delbert Blair once, and he was saying, he said that advanced beings of this advanced beings of this planet live inside the Earth.
Mm, yeah,
Unadvanced, lesser beings live on the planet because the inner beings don't want to be exposed to the radiation of the sun. So they so they stay in the planet. I mean,
yeah,
and when he said that, I was like, God damn, that makes perfect sense.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you're, especially if you're not melanated. At least if you got melanin, you got a better chance. You know what I'm saying? But if you ain't melanated, why would you be subjected to all those UV rays and radiation just coming down and blistering you up and killing you? Even if you are an advanced non-melanated albino being, you would be in a cave or underneath the ground with a lesser sun with lesser effect
Yeah,
as opposed to that one up there.
that's right.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
But
that's a good point. Good point.
hmm
But I wanna touch on just at least one more thing
hmm
on the whole topic, right?
yeah.
We kind of broke it down a little bit. We touched on a lot
hmm
of things. Um, there's a book. It's called Light and Truth by
hmm
Robert Benjamin Lewis.
hmm
Um, I often bring it up because it's an excellent book. First of all, secondly, when it comes to historical documentation
hmm
and the conversation that we're having right now,
hmm
the book is paramount.
hmm
I'm gonna read just a section from it. If you get the book, if you're listening or you're watching this at some point, Light and Truth by Robert Benjamin Lewis. You can turn to page 339 and 340, right? And it deals with the word Negro, right? And
hmm
before I read it, kind of want to talk about like how the word developed. So you have the word Niger first, right? Then you have the word Negro, right? Then you have the word nigger. All three of these words have the same meaning in general,
hmm
and that's black.
hmm
So the word nigger means black, the
hmm
word Niger means black, the word Negro means black,
hmm
right? But I'm going to go a little bit deeper to kind of show because, we talked about Spanish a little bit earlier where the term
hmm
Negro or Negro is referring to a slave, right? So the word Negro is derived from the Latin term Niger, meaning black, all right? Niger, and you can look this up also in the etymology of the word Negro. So,
hmm
but this is an old source, where somebody was recording this history. That's why I like to use this as well. So Niger, a Latin word, was formerly used by the Moors, and it goes on to say the old Romans, to designate any black inferior object. I'm gonna say that again. To designate any black inferior object. Okay. A plant, a marsh, flat, moist ground, bog, or animal. Or animal. The reason why that's key is because during the transatlantic slave
hmm
trade, right, two things happened regarding this whole animal thing,
hmm
or three things, right? They turned us into beasts of burden,
hmm
chattel,
hmm
like cattle,
hmm
right? And for the Christian mindset, they had to dehumanize us.
hmm
We had to be animals. We had to be subhuman
hmm
for them to be able to degrade us and not feel, the
hmm
hellfire
hmm
because of it. So this was again, so the mind manipulation didn't just go one way. Like it's 360.
hmm
It wasn't just a one shot deal. It wasn't just about brainwashing us. They had to brainwash everybody. That's why I was telling you about George Washington when he made that
Yeah.
oath. That was an oath. After they said that, they didn't speak about that no more.
hmm
If we're the Masonic secret, that's why they
hmm
keep it secret. They're not running around talking about it. Because
Yeah.
if you run around talking about it, eventually you're gonna wake up the person or the person that you're trying to keep the secret
Keep
from
it
is
keep
gonna
it from.
find out
Yeah.
the secret. So, you know, but
That's
yeah,
that. That's interesting you said that because I remember Bobby Hemmett was saying it in the lodge in Washington. You know, they say that on the mural, all the Masons are reaching up and the black hand of God is reaching down.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's
That's right.
interesting, man.
And that's supposed
But
to be on the floor that they don't typically let
it
people on.
exactly correct. Yeah, yeah. But you know, I shoot, I
You said
saw
Bobby Hemmett said that?
mm-hmm. You
So
sure did.
you know who else said the same thing?
Hmm.
Um, one of my good friends, ancestor that passed on. Why's his name eluded me for the moment? Oh my goodness, I was just talking about him the other day. His name is slipped my mind. What's the brother used to come down to Atlanta all the time? Steve Coakley.
Stokely. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Steve Coakley said the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. 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 Well, I remember seeing an old Masonic temple um in Macon um back when I was just raised back then.
Hmm.
Um I think that if I'm not mistaken, Doc was going to buy the that lodge, but it was an old Caucasian lodge, but inside all of the glyphs, the Egyptian glyphs,
Hmm.
were for blacks. I saw that for myself. That
Yeah,
mean, when I say blacks, I mean, well,
yeah,
they were Nubian, Nubian, of the Nubian descent. So it's like just going to your point. But I've personally been told by different white Freemasons specifically, that like, they, you know, because they know, and I've also heard that a lot of them that are back in the day that were truly racist, they found out this information, they couldn't handle it, man. They were like, yo, a lot of people killed. They said a lot of people killed themselves. I don't know how true that is, but
mm,
but once you find out the truth about what it really is, and you just got you know you got your whole world on pretty much a lie,
yeah,
because that's the thing that's, if you're looking at this, man, I'm telling you, you've been lied to. You If you're watching this and you are Caucasian, you've been lied to worse than we have. You know what I'm saying about a lot of this information, because they got you thinking all this fantasy stuff about us, stuff that happened and all this. Man, y'all don't have, they didn't tell y'all nothing, unless, like he was saying, you don't go to these lodges and find out the real secrets. This stuff's a fairy tale, man.
yeah. That's a
Yeah.
fact.
And
And also
mhm.
like if people want another like source where they can go see some stuff, they can go to the Negro Law of South Carolina,
Mm,
chapter 1. I want to say, yeah, section 4.
mhm,
Um, and it starts it starts with the status of the Negro, his rights and disabilities.
mhm. Yeah.
And this is key, right? Because again,
Mhm.
the whole title of this talk, this
Yep.
conversation.
Exactly.
And so in section 4 it says the term Negro is confined to slave Africans. All right. And then it goes on to say in parentheses, the ancient Berbers. Now, if you go back to what I said in the beginning, you
Mhm.
put the etymology of Moor. First thing it says, Moor, Berbers,
Mhm.
right? So this is who we're talking about. So the Moors have forgotten who they were. They
Mhm.
come back here and say, "Oh, so these Negroes are really those who have been enslaved."
Mhm.
Remember, I brought that to you from the Spanish language.
Mhm.
Like, so again, these are keys to kind of unlock it.
Yeah.
Now you can unravel and unlock the spell.
Mhm.
Because these lies are a spell. They're a
Yeah.
program, and
Mhm.
you keep running these programs in your mind. I,
Mhm.
I said this years ago. They called you nigga so long, you think it's your name,
Mhm.
right? So it's kind of hard to get that off of you because somebody call you something for 3, 4, 500 years, and
Mhm.
you've accepted it, adopted it, and call
Mhm.
yourself that daily. 20, 30, 40 times a day. And everybody that looks like you, that's what you're calling them. You're calling them
Exactly.
the lowest thing you can based on your own oppressive system by the people who gate. Like, you know, I don't mind when people call, identify as black, right? Because everybody's in a different place, right?
I agree.
But I will say this for those who are waking up and for those who are, especially those who maybe RBG and along those lines, it's something to keep in mind that you can't be RBG if you're still recognizing yourself by your oppressor's titles and labels. If you haven't got it in your mind that I need to at least adopt what my people were calling themselves prior to this indoctrination, then you ain't even cracked the book open yet.
Yeah.
You're wearing an outfit and that's fine, because you got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
You got to fake it till you make
I
it.
agree, man. I agree 100%, man.
But we got to look at how we identify ourselves, because again, our minds are supercomputers. So our self-talk is the programming language, right? And so if we keep on identifying a certain way, that's just what we'll be.
It's interesting you said that, man, and that's really heavy. And because like I told you before, because when I was in Virginia, just being submerged with all this, all this self-hate, all this negative image, all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, it took all those master teachers we just talked about to undo that spell for me to stop having self-hate because it was so entrenched in me. I talk about this in the book, man, but it was like, so heavy and deep in which, I had to, it took me years to get that spell broken. And I'll be the first person, I wrote in the book, I'll be the first person to tell you that, that stuff was so deep, man. You know what I'm saying? So deep. You know what I mean? And now we can see how, it's a good thing because we see where it came from and now we see the spell can be broken, man. So I wanted to thank you again, man, for a beautiful build, man, as always, man. Yeah, man, I think you connected a lot of dots with a lot of actual facts, and as always, and I do appreciate that. And what I'm saying, I can't wait for the next the next chat.
Definitely, for sure. Same here.
You know what I'm saying? And that's all I know, I know that we talk about this. We got to get a date and everything. I already started the works about the health and wealth event. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm very excited for you to be a part of that. We'll give the people more details in the future, but an amazing night. Thank you for all the information. And y'all reach out to this good brother. Please follow him. And that's it on my end. Of course, follow Dr. Gabriel Hernandez, Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast, and y'all have a great night.
Peace and love, y'all.
Peace.
Peace, brother.